welcome you to the show.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, just jump right in wherever you feel you jump in. I know you've given it some thought.
Fantastic. Well, you just mentioned that you were getting some feedback about overall experiences with what's going on during this crisis from the IT management perspective. And I hadn't planned on saying anything about that, but one thing I can definitely add from the context of our company being in downtown DC and having been downtown on 9/11, that anybody who had been through the event in the early 2000s and been in the urban area or downtown DC, that is, I think as technology shifted, especially from 08 to 12, which I consider a very critical juncture in the history of technology, when hardware got exponentially more reliable, software development processes really got the level of efficiency and effectiveness really skyrocketed around that time frame. And right on the heels of that, we saw a huge surge in cloud technology. We then adopted the Microsoft Cloud infrastructure in 2014. Now, without the experience of going through 9/11, I wouldn't have been as quick to adopt or recognize such value in an infrastructure asset such as the Microsoft Cloud or other cloud infrastructures for that matter. And subsequent to that, we've also gone to a cloud platform for our telephony at work, which was kind of the last piece of the puzzle. And the reason why that lagged was mainly just due to investment in a current kind of legacy platform. That all worked out very fortunate in that we actually recently transitioned to a cloud platform for our office telephony. So as of March 13th, when we soft closed the office, we basically deserted our offices a little over a month ago. We were in a very agile posture to maintain business continuity from remote. Of course, there are other factors that are involved, logistical and technological factors, such as connectivity constraints, but also having most of the office having migrated to mobile computers. Yeah. So there are other factors involved, but overall, we've been in a very good position.
You were very early relative to a lot of folks. 2014, moving to the Microsoft Office environment in email in 2014. In fact, that is early because a lot of the tools weren't as mature as they are now on the Microsoft
I know.
Teams. The experience people are having with Teams now, would have been nightmarish probably in 2014. But what are you most grateful for relative to the right now being and like what tools are being used most within from your organization?
Well, relative to this crisis, without a doubt, Microsoft Teams. I mean, just hands down. We are already heavily leveraged inside their cloud file synchronization technologies, whether it was SharePoint document sites or personal OneDrive repositories. So that was kind of already in place. But as far as facilitating...
Explain that again. Explain that SharePoint OneDrive you just said, just because I haven't had that conversation with anybody yet. And what do you mean by that?
Okay, so, well, again, we actually entered into a Microsoft Cloud tenant in 2013, made that migration in August of 2014. Prior to that, we would have been in what I would call a legacy mode, where you have local file servers, local file shares. You would have personal documents, usually saved locally and backed up to a central repo. Client and production documents would all be central, either in a DMS or a shared public drive. And with the move to the Microsoft Cloud, the client product would have been moved into a SharePoint document library, which is synchronized automatically with the end user computers, and also, of course, available through a web experience in SharePoint. That was actually a long adoption process. We have I think every company has its share of Luddites, and it was years of kind of pulling teeth and bringing one income silo after another into the newer technology.
Luddites, I like that. I haven't heard that before.
It's pretty apt. And then when it comes to personal documents, you would have a personal OneDrive, synonymous with a Dropbox or a Google Drive, but in the Microsoft flavoring, it's called OneDrive. So that's the two kind of initial repositories people will interface with on their computers at our company. Again, for production, it's going to be SharePoint document sites. With personal stuff, it's going to be OneDrive. Now, the fact of the matter is that's all a common backend. Even Teams, most of Teams is really just a pretty front end for a lot of SharePoint resources.
Yeah, for sure.
And Exchange resources, of course.
Right. And you have, I know, from a I'm trying to get under the guts of collaboration because everybody wants to use that word. It's like calling someone nice. It's like we're not really sure what that means. The word nice, and we're not really sure what collaboration means. But
Right.
I'd love for you to define what you think collaboration means in your environment and what some of the unexpected wins that you're getting.
Oh, no doubt. One thing, again, this is all under the front end of using Microsoft Teams. We have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday all hands meeting at 9:30 in the morning. That meeting suffices for a multitude of reasons, or a multitude of purposes. One is to make sure everybody knows they're not alone, so nobody feels orphaned. So if you haven't been busy in a couple days, we always have that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9:30 all hands meeting. It's to make sure we maintain a consistent message as a company.
Okay.
And that everybody's kind of on the same heading. We are in government relations, and there's been a lot going on with the CARES Act and a lot of stuff going on with legislation and in politics. So a lot of people share intelligence on those meetings that's very useful for the rest of the company to hear. So when it comes to collaboration, there's a lot of different facets to it, and those are just a few. But I think fundamentally, what has been most valuable is just maintaining the same corporate culture that we enjoyed in person in DC. We're now able to maintain through this collaboration tool with everyone working out of their residences.
So this Monday, Wednesday, Friday, did you have the same cadence and frequency when you were in person as you're doing now remotely?
No, not at all. We would have all hands every other Tuesday. So it's much more frequent than it was, because you would have that personal interaction in the halls. You would have that FaceTime at the coffee machine. You'd see the president in the corner office, and you'd have chats. And so that's with that all being void. This has really replaced that kind of interaction. I mean, I think it was really, really cool, actually. I think that in the second week, the president entered into us all singing happy birthday to someone. And it was really a cool moment that nobody anticipated, and it worked out well.
That's really, really neat. I'm having a lot of these conversations about, I think, again, people like to use the word culture. It's like nobody knows what it means, because, does that mean that everybody's just like me? Do we want an environment where everybody's just like me? So it's like, well, they don't really fit our culture.
Right.
Well, what does that mean? So do we want everybody in the environment to be, culturally the same, whatever, or are we trying to create this kind of a different experience from this? So it's interesting. And I'm curious, a year in the future, looking back at this, Brian, so if you cycle forward a year, and now we're talking in 2021, looking back, what things do you think will be what will be in place again from this? What are going to be some of the learning that you think from the senior management? They're like, we're going to keep this in place because this is a good thing to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we're just finally leveraging a lot of the technologies we've already been invested in, that people have been slow to adopt or slow to recognize the value of.
Yeah.
So a year from now, I'd expect, I think we already see barriers coming down. There's, barriers to working remotely, adding efficiencies to getting things done without having to be in the office, quality of life improvements from being able to work at home if you don't have a physical necessity to be in the office. I think there's no putting these barriers back up. I think, of course, I have a fear of, the old guard kind of section of management wanting to go back to some older styles of work. But I think that I just don't think that's a strong possibility. I do think that these barriers are down for good, and that a year from now, we will see increased efficiency when it comes to production, with people being able to get things done from home and being comfortable with it. Also, people being able to be comfortable with this kind of interface. We didn't have a lot of video interaction prior to this experience. I would say maybe 15 to 20% of the company used video one-on-ones with any regularity, and now it's practically 100%.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the notes because some unique perspectives are popping up during our call. The barriers coming down. I'm wondering how how we're going to track people's productivity.
It's an interesting question.
I mean, this is, it is not going to be a popular perspective, but as an owner and as an entrepreneur and as someone who works, have an employee base, but I also work with CIOs, and I'm often hearing, different, and we sit there and go, it is hard to work an 8-hour day, Brian. I mean, if someone actually does, like, an attorneys are some of the most highly paid people on the planet, and they track their time in 6-8 minute increments, and they do
Right.
it for a reason. Nobody wants to get a $600 bill because someone forgot to turn off when they gave them 12 minutes of time.
Right.
You get $600, $1,000, $1,200 bill.
Right.
They're amazingly efficient, and you sit there and go, I've actually tried. It's hard. It's like to get 8 hours of productivity with bouncing between meetings and this and that. I think we're gonna really ask ourselves the questions: what does it mean to be productive?
Understood. Well, most of our business, and all businesses have different goals and deliverables. Our deliverables are very measurable by what they're producing.
Okay.
Most of our products are either meetings, white papers, honestly, on the business development end, proposals. So these are somewhat measurable. Also, we do have, again, because of being heavily vetted now into the cloud infrastructure, there are some basic metrics available via the cloud infrastructure to see basic activity and document creation and the measuring those volumes. Presence technology has been around since unified communications over 10 years ago, and people were really afraid of it at first. Oh my gosh, somebody can see if I'm green, yellow, or red. This is a long time ago, and now it's practically passé. People aren't so insecure about appearing yellow or red, as long as they appear green often enough, and they're, so that whole presence, the whole paradigm with the presence technology is going in a positive direction. I don't know. I'd like to consider myself a neophyte over time, and it's all finally coming to fruition. But it's been, again, back to your question of measuring an 8-hour day. I think it's I think that in and of itself is a paradigm shift, and that things are going to be more measured on product and deliverables.
I think you're right on there. I think that's the right question to be asking. It might take 12 hours to get the deliverable out. It might take 4, it might take 6.5, it might take 3. But ultimately, what's the outcome that we're rowing towards? What longitude, latitude, what coordinates are we trying to hit?
Right.
I think it's going to force potentially more clarity. I think it's going to focus managers in leadership about clarity of target, especially in a very complex world. If you can't be clear, then you sort of have to default to, did someone show up for 8 hours? But if you're really clear, then you can actually have you can have an outcome that you're actually trying to achieve.
Right.
Did I achieve it or not? Did I achieve? I mean, it's a binary. I'm making it quite simple, but is it a binary?
Right. Understood.
Yeah, green light.
Yeah, the transitions are strange, but I think we pretty much nailed where things are probably going. Now, of course, large corporations that are based on quota systems, even large swaths of the government will be laughing at us right now because that's kind of how they've operated for a long time. But be that as it may, I think it's a positive change in our white collar segment of an industry. And it's actually interesting you had mentioned something you just said, because one of the questions was, are there partnerships within the company worth fostering? And that was question number 10. And my answer to that was really not a direct answer, but it was more of a revelation that I'm part of a management committee or management team at our company. And we meet once a week and we collaborate and we bring our problems into the forum and we all have input and kind of go our own ways. And a lot of times we'll see competition in that group, or not necessarily discord, just kind of disagreement or competition of thought in that group. Okay. And in a crisis like this, it's definitely feeling more like a cohesive unit than a competitive unit. Okay. Where we're really, I think, putting more value on what each other is saying. We're definitely listening more because of the crisis stance with which we're approaching things right now, just over the past month.
Competition versus cohesion.
Correct. Because interpersonal issues over time are inevitable in any culture. So again, that's a change we're seeing over the past month.
Yeah, it's in a lot of the conversations that I'm having is, I think companies are going to be running towards a very, they're going to be questioning quite a bit of what they did in the past, and business lines like, was this really necessary, or are we just being unnecessarily fat in this area? Is this really adding value? Do we really need to have these resources dedicated to this particular area? And all of a sudden, people's pet projects and ideas are under scrutiny. Even if you happen to continue to be profitable, they're going to be under scrutiny because everybody's going to be asking the question. A good question to ask: how do I do more with less?
Yeah, precisely.
And I think with the Industrial Revolution, everybody wants to be efficient, and I think that efficiency is a really interesting point right now because it focuses on sort of a manufacturing process for efficiency. But when you're dealing with human beings, it's by nature, you got human. How do you be efficient with emotion? And so your point about collaboration, cohesion, you used the word cohesion. I think we're going to really see what cohesion, collaboration, can these be things that can be moving forward despite a crisis? Like, do we need a crisis to be cohesive? I
think sometimes humans, we're animals, man. I think sometimes we do. Sometimes we need to, see the forest instead of just seeing the trees all the time.
Yeah. I mean, didn't that what happened after like World War II? I said, everybody complains that the generation after World War II was the best generation ever, and because of what they came from and came through, and then so these were the real heroes. And so, I kind of wonder, coming from this experience, is this? It's not necessarily, but it's the one time we've had one enemy, like worldwide. The first time we had one predominant enemy, at least in 100 years. Right. And to be interesting to see what comes out of this from a leadership perspective, and what would maybe these new paradigms of cohesion. Use the word cohesion. It could be collaboration. It could be, it's going to turn things upside down quite a bit.
You got it. I agree.
Brian. Well, is there any final thoughts that you were like, darn, I wish Bill had asked me this, and I wanted to throw my 2 cents in on any particular area other than what we talked about?
No, in all honesty, I think you and I could talk for hours.
Yeah, for sure.
And it would be fruitful, but no, it's a good conversation. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for sharing your words of wisdom and thoughts. And you were definitely first into this cloud environment from a lot of perspectives. And I salute you for all the efforts you made there. And be well and be healthy.
You as well. Good seeing you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.